welcome, folks. Welcome to our latest live commentary. Chris Garlock here, of course, with the one, the only Michael Redmond. Michael, good to have you back.
Hi, Chris.
Good to see you. We did do a little catching up since we haven't done this for a little bit, and want to check in on how things are with COVID in Japan. Also, a tournaments, your own play. And then obviously we'll get right into the game. Just a reminder to folks, this is live and we love to hear your questions or comments and respond to those. Eva-Dee will be monitoring that and letting us know. So go ahead and hit us up in the comments. Once again, brought to you by the U.S. American Go Association, usgo.org. All right, so Michael, what is going on with COVID there in Japan? We obviously have been having dealing with the Delta spike here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was looking bad for a while, and I think actually it's settling down a bit. I think the numbers are getting slightly better. So maybe it's peaking. And the vaccinations are... There was a period where Japan was not making much progress with vaccinations. And it sort of happened at my age group. So I'm one of the people who was a lot later than originally expected. And we couldn't get reservations. Like I tried to do it on the net, and it was filled up in about 3 seconds.
Oh my God! Wow.
So while I was trying to click, there were people who were clicking faster than me. So
people with nimbler fingers.
Right. Yes. So there was a period like that, but I think it's starting to move forward now. They're starting to do younger people also. On the whole, I think the vaccination, and of course, Japan is way behind, for instance, America in doing this, but also the pandemic came much more slowly to Japan. So
right.
On the whole, it's I think it's a situation that's gaining to be under control.
I'm very happy to hear it. And you mentioned before we came on the air that you just got your first vaccination, right?
I had my first vaccination. In about a week, I'll have my second. Actually, it's going to be coinciding with a big international tournament that I was thinking of streaming about. So that might interfere a little bit. I hear that the second vaccination does have a big reaction.
Give yourself, based on my experience, give yourself a good day. Although I will say I had a reaction to the first, the second I was fine with. But which one did you get?
That was Pfizer.
I had no problem with the Pfizer.
Okay.
Yeah, my wife had the other one.
There's a lot of difference between people, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see how it happens. It's me.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. But you're very healthy, and I'm sure you'll be fine.
Thank you.
All right. So I know the tournament's play has been fairly slow in recent months, right?
I think on the whole, it's been a bit slow. It's been very slow for me. There was a period in, I think it was July, when I played actually something like, I think it was about 5 games in July. So that was a good month for me. And I think there were about 2 of those tournaments that I'm still in. But there was a phase where it's changing to a different section. So in one of them, it's going to be televised, and it's still far in the future when I play. I don't even know if I don't have an opponent yet.
Oh, wow.
And then there's another one which should be coming soon, but I'm still waiting. So I think that in general, things are moving a bit slower. They're trying to keep people from being crowded as they play their games.
Good.
So that's part of it. It still was a bit unusual. I'll probably have more games later in the year.
And you mentioned that you've been doing well, so that's good news.
Well, so and so. I would like to be doing better, but it's not as if I'm losing everything. So
okay.
I have some tournaments moving. Yeah.
Okay. There's a new Lightning tournament apparently. Are you going to be doing any commentary on that? We love Lightning tournaments.
It all depends on my schedule. I'm not exactly sure. I think I heard of the tournament you're talking about, but I don't have very much information on it.
Okay, well, keep us posted, and we will keep you all posted. All right, we are closing in on wrapping up this particular series game. Technically, we're sort of into extra innings here. We're calling it 52, but it's the extra.
It was originally just 50 games, and then there were 5 extra games that they Originally it was televised by a Chinese internet Go station, and then they just made them free for everyone.
Nice. All right. So, what are the main points you want to focus on in this game?
Okay, we're gonna start with a Joseki, the 3-3 point. I actually, on my channel, I made some videos about the 3-3 point, and there was one variation that I avoided because it's so complicated. And okay, let's just put it on the board. Can I put some stones on the board here?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so black dives into the 3-3 point and crawls and plays this attachment. And this is something that AlphaGo was doing, and people continued to do it. It was actually a Chinese player who played this first. So it was the Miyuting Joseki that he was really good at. I think he played it first or something, or at least he researched some of the most complicated variations. So I think this is something we had going even before computers. But it's really extremely complicated when black plays the attachment underneath here. And people were asking me why I didn't make a video about this. Is because my real advice is not to play it. And actually for both sides. So to start with, what the problem is here is that when black plays this, people will tell you that white is supposed to cover here.
Okay.
And when that happens, and black bumps against white like this,
right?
White doesn't really have the option of covering on the fourth line. If white covers on the fourth line, capturing the stone towards the side here, that's a ponnuki. It's a good shape for black towards the upper side, and this is good for black. Locally, it's just good for black. So white is supposed to extend here, and this is going to lead to a huge fight where black pushes through and cuts.
Yeah.
And I'll just leave this at this point for now. Later on, I'll come back to this and show you one variation. Like I could show you 100 or so variations, but that wouldn't be very productive. So I'll just show you one variation, which is my suggested idea. But first of all, in order to avoid this whole thing, I'm going to say that we're going to go back to where black crawls. And I'm going to suggest that white should just extend here. So if you want to get to avoid all of the complications, this is a move that will give you a fairly good score with a computer.
Okay.
And it works really well for humans. So the other option would be to play here and just extend like this. This is the old Joseki. And the idea is that black is going to play something towards the side, and that white wall is actually not very strong. So yeah, sometimes actually black will crawl once more. It's sort of and black will play somewhere on the side. It's you might notice that I'm sort of choosing between D11 and D12. AlphaGo likes to pincer at this point, three spaces away from the wall, and is looking to attack the wall with moves like this. So that wall doesn't have any eyes, and so this is an issue that the star point player always has when we get this early 3-3 invasion. The fact that the wall is not connected to any structure on the side of the board, it means that the wall can be isolated like this, and it's not necessarily a strong group. So that's the problem with this Joseki. And so I'm going to suggest that instead of playing the old Joseki, which will give you this one, which will give you a bad score with a computer, or playing this move, which can get really complicated when black plays here, I'm going to suggest that if you want to keep it simple, you play this way. And black can crawl, in which this is the Joseki that you will find in my videos. You'll find it in zillions of games now. I won't go into detail in this case. In this case, white will probably play an extension at this point. So either black will do that or slide. If black slides, white can play away. You can see white's getting the point on the side. That's the whole idea here. And something like this. If black reinforces, then white can reinforce. So the idea here is to create an area on the adjacent side where black is not going to be able to make trouble for white. That's the idea that I have with this Joseki. I think white, and for human playing at least, I think white wants to keep this group safe and keep it to continually a strong group. In this case, it's going to be a strong group, and I would expect the left side to turn into a white territory. So that's what 3 and 5 are doing here. Obviously, they're also putting pressure on black in the lower left area. So it's double purpose.
Right.
So this is my suggestion. And there's one other variation where black plays here. This depends on a ladder. The ladder going in this direction. Let's see, it's going to curl around like this. And it's going, you can see when it curls around like this, it's touching the tengen point, the center point there.
Mm-hmm.
That means it's going to touch the star point, like it's going to go like, these are the black stones coming like this. So that's how it's going to touch the star point. It's going to put a white stone at this point in a target. And so the ladder doesn't work for white. That's a kind of shorthand for figuring out a ladder. You just make a diagonal line, and that's where the black stones will be coming.
Cool.
And so yeah, so it's sort of like this, and it's going to hit the tengen. And if it hits the tengen, then it's going to hit the star point. So that would be, white would push then, since the ladder doesn't work. If the ladder works, this is going to be good for white. So if the ladder works, white just plays here and captures the one stone on the ladder. That would be good for white. But obviously, since the ladder doesn't work, that's not going to be played. And white's going to push here. And then cut on this side and play here. This is actually something you see a lot in professional games. And if white does play towards the side here, and again, the idea is going to be to reinforce this wall, because it's not, you would assume that a wall on the outside is going to be strong. That's a dangerous assumption. You have to assume that it doesn't have any eyes, because that's sort of the idea. It's the theme when black has played an early 3-3 invasion. The idea is that is not just taking the territory, it's taking away white's eye space. Mm-hmm. So it's very important for white in this case, the player who's played the star point, to be aware of the fact that this wall is not necessarily strong, and white has to take a position on the side. And so like 13 here is sort of borderline, because white would feel even more comfortable if it was closer to the wall. White would be thinking maybe black's going to invade here, but white has to go all the way to 13 in this case, because it's really effective as a pincer against this stone. So white's pushing it a little bit.
Doesn't that kind of fly in the face of sort of more traditional thinking about not wanting to play too close to a wall, wanting to use the wall to attack, almost inviting
don't play too close to thickness.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thickness is a strong position. And you know, just look at Takemiya's games in his big Moyo era. That was like the 1980s, 90s maybe. When he was playing those big Moyos, and his opponent invaded close to a wall, he would just connect on top. He would allow the opponent to take all the territory away. And like, if you didn't know what he was doing, you would think he was crazy, because he wasn't taking any territory at all.
Yeah.
And then he'd end up with this huge moyo in the center of the board. And so what he was doing was, his walls are very similar to this wall that white has here in the upper left, in that they did not have any eyes. This wall doesn't have any eyes. So like, for instance, if we compare it to a wall, let's just make a wall on the right side. If we compare it to a wall like this, where black has captured a white stone, let's just add this exchange just to make it more clear. This black wall has eyes all over the place. It has a potential eye here. If black plays a stone here, this is going to be a forcing move that gives black an eye here. If black plays here at any point, black's going to have another eye here. So like, black already has something close to 3 eyes. Black has more eyes than he needs. He could sell one. So a wall like that is really strong, and that's thickness. But this wall here in the upper left is not thickness, because it doesn't have any eyes. And so there's a distinction between thickness. Let's see, what's the variation? This one. There's a distinction between thickness and a wall that if you look at Takemiya's games, you can actually see him making that distinction. And he was really great at making big moyos. And I think one of the reasons was that he recognized this difference between thickness. and just a wool. And like Chochkun is another player in Japan who does it from the opposite side. He takes the territory and then he attacks the wall. And people think he's really greedy, but actually he's just saying that he's making eyes when he takes the territory and he's taking away his opponent's eyes. So yeah, that's looking at it from the other viewpoint. So that was my suggested move here. So now do you want to take a look at the game variation?
Right.
So white played here, black played here. And usually when white plays here, as I was saying, the way black refutes that is usually black plays here. And the difference there is that if black had played this stone, so white's played here. If black had played something like this, then white would have a lot of options. White would probably play here, but locally you often see white playing stuff like this and cutting here. And maybe you're going to get a joseki like this. There's a number of joseki. Let's just leave it there. Like there's a whole bunch of joseki that people know. And pretty common. But when black has played this move, black is not really giving that option to white. So when white covers here and black bumps against, let's see, I've made two variations for this. Yeah. So yeah, this one. So when white plays here, black pushes through and cuts. Okay, let's just show one variation for white to do. First of all, these two white stones are potentially in danger. And the tesuji, the shape move, is to play here. And the reason this is a good shape move is that it's threatening to play at B17, the hane in the corner.
Yep.
And of course, it's also threatening to take that black stone on the outside. So black has to extend here. The problem with this is that there's a ladder about to happen. If white plays here now, then however black does it, like black could just play like this. It's going to be a ladder somewhere in the center. So yeah, so however black does it, like some people would get really desperate and try this, but it's not going to do any good. It's the ladder. So back to this one. So white can't do that. So white has to push on the outside, and black and hane again. It's the same ladder that black is threatening. So white has to answer in the center. And this is where it gets really complicated because white has a number of ways to try to avoid that. But I'm going to suggest that this is the easy variation. I'm just going to show you this one. There's others that are a lot more complicated, and I don't really advise them. Like, you know, if you play the other moves, you're going to get into trouble.
Yeah, folks, you have been warned.
Yeah. There's no rule against doing it. Like, yeah, but yeah, you're just going to crash maybe. So in this case, B17 is going to be a kind of a killing move next. So black cannot allow white to do that, and black has to play here. So the thing that makes this relatively easy to understand is that black 11 was forced. If black 11 had been played elsewhere, this is just going to be very, very bad for black in the corner. And the point is that this move at 10, it's protecting the cut point here. It means black doesn't have a forcing move at this point. Black cannot play here and force it because white's already protected both of those cuts. So the fact that this cut is gone is one of the values of playing at 10.
Oof.
Okay, I'm trying to keep it simple here. So black has to play 11. And so white gets to cut here. In this variation, white's going to be sacrificing those 3 stones. And black's best way of capturing is actually just to go straight down here. And white's going to play an extension on the side.
Oh, man.
So white's playing on both sides. Black looks like black has a big territory there in the corner, but it's actually only about 15 points. And and this exchange is really bad because it's giving that white group an extra item.
Terrible shape for black too, right?
Yeah, it's bad shape, but you know, just to show you, and going back to this point, some people would want to play an Atari. It's not really going to do any good for black. Like, eventually, black has to play here anyway, and you could go to extremes. You could go to extremes and play stuff like this. You know, it's still going to be really troublesome there when white, at some point when white plays a move like this, it's going to be a headache. You might be able to win by one move, but there's, you know, what we call aji. And you've given white all these moves on the outside already. Like white couldn't do that without black's help. White's getting in really good shape. So I don't advise doing that kind of thing. It's probably
No.
best for black just to curl around like this. And people who like territory like this for black, but it's okay for white. It's a bad shape for black. White has a forcing move on the first line here. Sometimes white will be playing from inside just so that white doesn't have to play that yet, and just leaving it for next. So white has some potential to force. White 20 it's sort of a pincer on the left side, and white's comfortable on both sides of the outside. It really depends on how much this stone is going to be accomplishing. Black has to make this stone work well. And in this board position, I think white has a sufficient amount of stones on the left side of the board that it's going to be okay for white. Okay, so that's the one variation that I'm going to say could happen in this whole thing. But yeah, I'll just go back to saying that I really advise you use this one. It's so much simpler. Yeah. So if you don't mind messing things up, you can play this one. So I was talking about this variation here where black bumps against white. If you're looking at top professional games, any professional games, strong amateurs, 99% of the time you're going to be seeing this, I think. But AlphaGo played here. And this is the other variation, which is not played very much. It's probably not so good for black, but it's a very subtle difference. So when black plays here, obviously white wants to save the one stone. So white plays a hanging connection. And the idea with this move is that black is going to start a fight here. So black's still starting a fight. And the order of moves here where black gets to play this, this move is necessary to live in the corner. So black has to play at some point. Playing the honey here is just giving some extra potential there. And black's going to use that immediately when black moves out here. And starting a fight immediately. So black is going to, again, it's sort of the same theme in that black has played the 3-3 point early and is trying to attack the white wall on the outside. Only in this case, black is sort of doing it in a very immediate fashion. So white plays here. Yeah, that's okay. And yeah, so this is pretty normal. And black plays here, an extension on the side. And white doesn't have eye space. And black is sort of weak in the center. And there's this fight on the left side with a fight happening in the center. And white plays here. This is really neat. You would be tempted to make a more solid connection. This is more active. I sort of like this move. And when black plays here, again, you would sort of want to play here, but that would leave the side open. So I really like the way white's playing here in a kind of a flexible fashion, sort of switching to the left side after black played that move in the center. It's working really well. And black is still looking to attack those white stones on the upper side. And you can see it's the same pattern that we see so many times. Black has played the 3-3 point, which you would usually associate with just grabbing territory. But black is trying to be aggressive here. Black is trying to look for options to attack white. It happens so much in these early 3-3 invasions. So black plays here. And white plays this move. So this is sort of playing away, but it also has to do with the upper side. So the normal move, white's position there on the upper side is not finished yet. So the normal move, that normal idea would be to play here. White could have done this. This would have been perfectly natural. Playing here, what do you think this is? Would you be surprised if I told you it's a ladder breaking move?
Oh, I would.
Yes, it's sort of very unlikely seeming variation for this to be a ladder breaking move, but it actually is. So black actually is cooperating here by playing that variation to a certain extent. So black plays here. Obviously, white would like to be able to push through. So white did that in the game. And at this point, you might expect black to cut on this side. But in this game position, so this is the comparison of white playing a move like in the game white played here. But if white had played something like this, which is also a very big move, then black would do that. But let's just imagine that and do it with the game variation. But when black plays here, and then here, obvious, right? Moving out with the one stone at threes. It seems obvious, but actually when the ladder favors white, now you can see the ladder, right? When the ladder favors white, this is going to be bad for black, because pushing through here, it's such a bad move. It's such a painful move. So this would be really bad for black, and black would be getting into trouble.
Danger comes.
If black could capture in the ladder here, so that would be the other variation. Let's just do it actually visually. Yeah, let's do it on a real variation. In this variation where black gets to capture in the ladder, this is going to be a big win for black. This is good for black. So there's a huge difference depending on whether black can make this ladder work or not. This would be really bad for white. White's not completely settled on the upper side. And so it's just bad. It's really bad. So there's a huge difference there. Actually, there was at this point, there's a neat move that Katago was showing me. That is not this move. This is so clunky. It's so slow. So actually, black is going to play here when the ladder doesn't work. And if white tries to escape, then black's going to enclose the upper side. And this is going to be bad for white. That upper side group is not alive yet. So yeah, something like that. I'm not sure about the final move there, but yeah, something like that. So white will simply push here, threatening to capture the two stones next. Next, white can push out, and black will finish them off. And it's a much more elegant way of taking the two stones than pushing through at L15. So this is really, the 5 and 7 are really nice moves. They're very good moves. But the whole situation here, it's probably good for white. White's getting a lot of territory on the upper side. So it was bad for black. And it was this move that was sort of waiting in ambush as a ladder breaking move, waiting for black to do this. I find that pretty impressive.
Yeah. No, it's really.
So in the game, black didn't do that. So that was a completely different plan. And this variation is actually, black gets to capture 3 stones here. Those were the cutting stones. So taking them is fairly big. But white does have a forcing move from outside. So the white position is sort of holding together as it is. And so white gets to play away again. So white got 2 moves elsewhere in return for this. And overall, this is an even result. It's an even trade. So there's the fact that white played 2 moves in the lower right corner, the fact that this stone is sort of wasted in this variation. And so white's sort of holding together there on the upper side. It is potentially a weak group though. So it's very even, actually. It's a very even result.
Wow.
So now we get to this Joseki, which is fairly familiar for people. I'll dip into this one a bit too. So here, the game move was this one. And if you watch strong players play, you've probably seen this move. So I'll show you the game variation next. But first of all, what if black plays here? Quite often, it's okay to play this move. You don't really have to worry about the cut here yet, because white's going to have a lot of issues with this cut here. Black's not going to die very easily in the corner. And I say very easily, like sometimes white can make a huge effort and kill that corner, and then maybe it's not going to be good enough anyway. So there's a lot of innuendos here maybe, but in general, it's just going to be bad for white when black cuts here. So white needs a lot of preparatory moves for this cut to actually work. And in actual practice, white's probably just going to play an extension on the side. And this is a kind of variation you see a lot. And in this game, it would continue something like this. A pretty even fight. So this is actually, I created this variation with the help of Katago. But every move in it makes sense to me. So this is a variation that could have been played by human players. It's not as if it's uniquely AI-like in the moves that are being chosen here. And it would be a relatively even fight. You can see that the black group is sort of being chased a little bit. So that's the bad part for black. The good part is that black has played at 11 and 19. Those are really big points on the lower side. So this is a trade-off that's pretty even also. White's really happy in that white is sort of chased that black group and has played on both sides, especially the moves that white's played towards the right side of the board. Really important moves that white's played there. So that's the good part for white.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting game because it's the swapping in the upper left, and it's it looked like there's still a lot of play left on the board. Interestingly,
yeah. Well, the difficult thing for me when I review these games that are played by AlphaGo is that usually with human players, I'm looking for a mistake.
right.
I'm looking for where the game changed in stream and one player took the advantage. It never happens with AlphaGo. Like just about everything is so superbly done and even. Okay, so black played this one. And so in the variation where black played here, I was showing that white was sort of putting pressure on this black group, and black was playing a lot of moves in the local area. In that variation, since black did get to play towards the lower side here, black was getting something back. So it was working in a way. But
go back for a sec. The connect at one, I think sometimes folks, I know I've done it, will try to cover with a Hane at R5.
Oh yeah, the hanging connection.
Yeah, which
this looks yeah, that's really bad.
It's really bad. It looks shapely.
Bad.
Yeah, it looks shapely.
The problem is that white gets this forcing move.
Right.
So that stone is going to be reinforced, and black doesn't get the corner either. So it's a kind of a helping move. It's bad, and so it's actually okay if you play this way and white plays here and you play here. In this case, there's a cut there at R7,
right,
which is interchangeable with this move in the corner, which secures the corner, gives black a living shape in the corner. And so black has two moves that black is looking at.
Yeah, big difference.
And so it's yeah. And then if white does stuff like this, which is also kind of an intuitive move, black connects here. And you might remember I was talking about connecting to start with. In this variation, the exchange here has made it virtually impossible for white to cut black in the future. So it's extra security for black, in that if white continues with this move, black can just connect here.
Right.
And it's not helping white. White would sort of want to push through here, but it's not as effective as you might expect because black 4 is a forcing move. And so white has not really punished this black stone here.
It's forcing.
White's going to get into trouble.
It's forcing for the cut at N3.
Okay. Yeah, so it's very, very far in the future when white might be able to think of playing moves like this to punish black somehow. White's in trouble before that happens. So it's a very difficult fight for white when white tries to doing stuff like that.
Got it. Thank you.
So that's how the attachment works. And white pushes through here. Just pushing through here, black has to connect. If black plays something like this, white's going to continue pushing, and the Atari at Q5 it's going to be a big problem for black. So black has to connect solidly, and white gets to play the honey in the corner. So white's getting something back in the corner here, and black is going to get a position towards the side. And this is where if you've watched my games, if you watch the games that I play, and I make videos about them on my channel, you will notice that I have a tendency not to connect at this point. I sort of, this is the Joseki move. And so it's the move that it's worth learning to start with. But I sort of don't get it because as far as territory is concerned, it's just a few points in the corner. It's less than 10 points. And black is going to play a move towards the side. Whether black plays this move on the 4th line or the 3rd line depends on how black feels about the right side of the board. So in a position where black feels that he has a local advantage in any fighting that might happen if white plays a move like this, if black thinks he has a local advantage, then it's okay to play on the 4th line. If black is afraid that white's going to attack that group with a move here, then sometimes black will want to play on the 3rd line, in which case it's a more solid territory and black would not have to worry about this move.
Right.
The drawback of this is that now white's going to get, white has a forcing move from above. So for instance, something like this might happen and black has to add a stone to it. Maybe white can play here, threatening. Eventually, white's going to squeeze with a Sargari at S6, or sometimes white can actually just push through and cut, and this would be some kind of a trade, something like this. So white has some potential. It's not clear exactly how white's going to use it, but white has potential to be forcing from above when black plays the low move. And it's sort of intuitively obvious that if black plays on the third line, there's going to be potential for white to force from above. And if black plays on the fourth line, there's going to be potential for white to play from underneath. So in a position like this, where black already has a position in the upper right corner, I think this is okay for black to play on the fourth line. I don't think black's afraid of this very much. Black could just extend here and start. Black would be chasing the white group, so it should be okay. Okay. So at this point, it's a point where I don't like to play that connection. And it turns out AlphaGo didn't, but in an unexpected way. AlphaGo actually invaded here. And like, sort of, that was a surprise for me. Yeah, so I was sort of like, what? And to show you the move that I would expect, it would be this one. So the Joseki is this one, where black is going to get the side. The alternative, you might say, is to play towards the side, and black gets the corner. And then white really gets the side. So this would be, actually, it's a feasible way of playing. I think the issue with the invasion that white played in the game at 0-17 was that at some point black's going to take here. Another move that might be sort of difficult to find. Black's not an Atari anything, but black's going to take there. And that takes away all of the forcing moves white had. So basically, if white's going to protect this group, white has to choose which move white's going to play. So white's going to have to make some choice here. And like if white plays here, it's probably going to fall apart. So white has to play some kind of passive move here. And the whole group is still going to be chased a little bit. So white has to make a decision. Actually, a strong white player might consider playing away and just sacrificing as many stones as possible. But if white does stuff like this now, it's going to be a fairly clean kill there. So that's a problem for white. So that's what's happening, I think.
Whoa. So white played all of those moves there, and white could actually think about just throwing them all away?
Well, I think if black gets them in a relatively clean kill, that's going to be bad for white. So white has to be really clever, and I think it looks difficult for white.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my explanation of maybe that's why white was playing that early invasion here, just to forestall that attack.
Okay. That makes sense.
When they were sort of in the middle of a Joseki here in the lower right corner, maybe it was okay. Maybe that variation I was showing you where white was just giving up the whole side, maybe it was okay in that if the lower right corner was bigger. But now the lower right corner has settled down a little bit. So in that variation where white has spent some moves on the right side and the situation in the lower right is finished, basically, then a move like this becomes much more effective.
Let me just ask you a local question. Now that I see how powerful black taking those stones is there any reason for white to think about taking Sente to, in that area to can white solve
there's no good move. Like if white plays an Atari here, this is actually going to create a weakness in white's shape. White needs to add one more stone, and adding a lot of stones to a group like this to get 2 or 3 points, it's really very painful. It would be a losing decision. So that's my explanation of this move. White's forestalling the attack and trying to do it in an elegant way, which is going to accomplish something. Actually, the moves that you were talking about, they sort of demonstrate that. So compared to moves like this, which would be not really making much progress, white's trying to do something more active while saving that group. The problem is that when white does this, black's going to get some momentum on the right side of the board. That's a big area that white is probably going to give to black, and that's what happened in the game. Black just allowed white to succeed here. Without that black stone, at this point to put pressure on white. It's sort of difficult for black to play actively. So, so it makes sense that black just sacrificed that, gave that to
So,
white.
so there's a comment who somebody wants to make sure they don't join your army because you're willing to sacrifice your soldiers so casually. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's sort of the point where, that people really need to think about, right? Is
Oh yes, the sacrifice stones are sometimes in dying. They're more useful than the living ones sometimes.
there you go.
Yeah, they go to Valhalla or something like that.
or wherever, right?
Wherever, it depends on your religion, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now black is getting the right side. And so now a lot depends on how white can deal with the right side here. So yeah, this is a big move too. And it's partly like this is a point where white could have played this move. But it sort of has to do with the fact that that white group, it's not 100% yet. So there's some pressure that's going to be put on that white group on the side, while black tries to settle his group on the left side. So white's attacking from that direction. And black takes the one stone. It's actually a big move that AlphaGo plays fairly early in the game also. And professionals will just jump on that, cut it to S2. I'm sort of the exception that I don't like to play it so much.
Interesting.
Okay, here white has invaded the right side. And one thing that I think that especially weaker players should be aware of is, again, this black wall that doesn't have any eyes.
Yep.
And so a very simple and easy to understand approach that I would suggest for black would be to play here, putting pressure on that white stone. That's taking away the extension towards the side for white. And white's going to run away. So something like this. And then if black gets another move, black takes the corner. So the idea of playing two moves while chasing white towards the center and taking a big corner here, which is, it's not only about 20 points value in territory. The black territory is closer to 15, a bit less than 15, but black is taking away some points from white also. So if white is slided into the corner, white would have a few points. So it's worth about 20 points there, and forcing white to play dame points, basically. Points that are not going to be much territory. This would be a kind of a natural sequence that I would suggest that this should be your first idea. Especially if you have trouble figuring out what to do in positions like this. If black tries to attack from above, white is going to have enough room, even if white does something like this. White's going to have enough room to live. And yeah, probably do some complicated stuff, but basically the Hane here, there's a cut there at R17, so that's forcing. White's going to have enough room on the side. In actual play, you'll see a strong player do some more complicated stuff, but I'll leave that. Right, it's not sort of off topic.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm really suggesting that this would be the natural way for black to play, and just to get a base in the corner. And it's the place where, for instance, when I'm playing handicap games, when I'm playing teaching games, it's a position like this where quite often the weaker player messes up and fails to find a good way to settle that relatively weak group. So it's something that is worth paying attention to, I think. But actually, now this is what we would call a vulgar peep on the lower side here. So black has just ignored it.
I've actually had my eye on it for a while.
Oh, great, yeah. Black has actually ignored that invasion because black has no way of capturing it and was not satisfied with that variation that I was showing you. I was suggesting black should live in the corner, and I suppose AlphaGo felt that was not optimal. So black is making use of this cut that black played before to start an attack on white on the lower side. And so black's going to take this area away from white, hopefully, and is trying to attack white. And peeping here is usually a vulgar move,
right?
But there's a good reason to play it, because let's just play a different move for black. Something like this, for instance. Sometimes white can push through and cut here and get some momentum towards the center. So white, like for instance, like this, white would be getting really great shape on the side. And if black starts to fight here, this is a position where white still has some forcing moves against these 4 stones in the center. At least the Atari is forcing. So it's going to be relatively difficult for black to fight effectively here.
Mm-hmm.
And if white can capture these 2 stones, it's going to be good for white. So for instance, if black cuts here, this is not going to be optimal for black. And actually, sorry, misclicks. In this case, the side is so much bigger. And actually, white has an Atari here that would be played at some point. And this is not a win for black. It's not a win when white plays here. I should have made a problem of that move. Sorry about that.
It's just
If white
actually
plays
just
here,
trying, right.
Yeah, I should have asked people. But white plays here. This is the testuji. And yeah,
Oh,
black has no place to push. Black can actually make a ko out of it. But yeah, a ko is a lot better than being dead, isn't it?
yes.
So that's really bad for black. Black has given up a lot on the left there and has not even captured these 5 stones.
Hmm.
In actual play, maybe this, but yeah, white lives in the corner. So that's okay for white too.
Interesting.
Let's
There's
see
a
if I can find the game
question.
variance.
There's a
Yes.
question back with the peep as to what the difference is between the M2, M3 and M2.
Yes, that's a good question. People like to be able to peep it. That's one of the reasons that this is considered a vulgar move usually. People would like to be able to play a peep on the second line. And if you have a shape like this, compared to the game variation where you have a shape like this, there's a difference there of just 1 line.
Right.
But having that stone on the second line is much more effective. So let's see. Yeah, I made so many variations that I have trouble seeing that variation, so I just played it again. It's taking more of white's eye space away. So for instance, in the game variation, if at some point white is going to try to live, white actually has a ko here. With this, there's no good way for black to kill this group. And so white's going to get a ko there. So locally, white is not completely dead. Whereas in this other variation, where black is played here, this is already dead locally. So there's a huge difference locally. So this is you're supposed to peep from the knight's shape. So you might notice that this black move it looks like a knight's move from the white stones, right?
Right.
So you're supposed to peep diagonally like this.
Right.
I think the problem in this case is very similar to before, and that at some point white's going to push through and play this, and maybe in this case white would just play like this. It gives white the opportunity to get some momentum here and put black in trouble. In this case, the black stone would be in a lot more trouble than the white stone. So it's a bit too low to play right now. It's a move that black would usually play, for instance, in a position like this, where black already has a stone on the side there.
Got it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It's just that in actual play, white's not going to let that happen. White's going to start making trouble here with the 2 stones. And so I hadn't actually gotten to my point yet, because the point of this move is that right now, white can't do that thing with the 2 stones. White would like to be able to do this, but it's going to collapse immediately. It just doesn't hold together.
Oof.
It's just dead. So yeah, like white could play here, black plays here. It's just dead. So white's not getting any mileage out of that. Because of the position of that black stone, white doesn't have the space to do this thing, chasing the 2 stones. There's no chance to do it. And that's extremely important, because later on, black is just going to sacrifice. Once black has played this exchange, black doesn't have to save these 2 stones again. And that's another thing about sacrificing stones. They've already performed their purpose by forcing white to connect at the mark point. There's stones that black doesn't need to save. And that makes them a lot more effective than if black would have had to save them, as in the other variations, where I was talking about white pushing through here.
Hmm.
And making use of those stones is a kind of to create momentum for white. It would be really, this is actually very efficient for white, and it's inefficient for black, and that these stones, they haven't accomplished anything yet, so black has to save them. If black were to sacrifice them, then, this exchange, black would wish that he had played it earlier, and it's definitely not going to be forcing anymore.
Hmm.
So there's a huge difference there depending on whether black has played this peep, and in this case, it's very effective. So it's an AlphaGo move that originally it looks really weird and vulgar to a strong player, and that's the point. To a strong player, I'm calling myself a strong player. I'm professional. I think I
Of
can do
course.
that.
Yes.
To a
I think so.
professional, it looks like a vulgar, like a weak player's move, but actually, there's some meaning to it. So, for instance, if white pushes through now, black's just going to dodge away. Black doesn't need those two stones. Taking the two stones becomes inefficient for white, just because now white's going to wish he doesn't have a stone here. What's that stone doing? It's really terrible.
Oh
So white,
man, clunky shape. Wow.
yeah.
Oh my
That's the whole
God.
point. Efficiency is very important in Go because your stones, they're the same stones, whether they're white or black. They're equal. It all depends on how they function.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here, black is taking a stand on the lower side. That black rook is weak, but white's not settled either. So it's sort of like if white does stuff like this, white's going to get into trouble too, on the right there. So that's the idea with black's move. There's a balance of power on the lower side, and white switches to the black was leaving that, and this is the move that white plays to start an attack on black's group in the corner. Black's group in the corner does not have eyes at this point.
Nope.
No eyes. So normally, if you're a human being, you would be thinking how to escape out into the center because black doesn't have room for eyes in the corner.
No eyes
So
in the corner.
AlphaGo plays this move. This is a really weird move, and I remember at the time I first saw this move, it's sort of like a clicko, right?
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's an AlphaGo clicko.
Yep. Yeah, like you would expect black is sort of trying to take a stone to somewhere around here, and sort of dropped it on the way. That's where black's pointer comes from, anyway. Yeah. So, but yeah, and
that's so
locally,
weird.
I would sort of expect this move, and the difference. I don't really understand the difference between these two moves. There is a difference in how solid this stone is, the connection to this stone. So it could be something in regard to white playing moves like this, in which case sometimes the diagonal move here is a stronger connection for black. And so, yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. It sort of puzzles me still. But the immediate obvious value of this move is it's taking away white's eye space on the wall. So black is preparing to attack white here. And black only needs about one stone somewhere around here in order to be able to push through and cut here. In which case, sometimes things like this or things like this would work.
Right.
So there's a hidden threat there. Black does need probably a stone here to make it actually work, but there's a hidden threat there with that move. But it's really counterintuitive to be playing away from the upper right there. So yeah, I don't really advise it to people. So white starts this call. This is just like white's on the way to dying anyway. So white's just throwing in a call here. And black finishes off. Now, after black has played all these moves, white can probably afford to sacrifice this whole group in some cases.
Okay.
So that allows white to start the attack on black's upper right group without. So you can see the connection. I was talking about how a black stone in this area is going to enable black to kill that white group. And so when white does stuff like this, that's going to potentially kill this white group on the lower side. just this attachment that white's played is a kind of a suicidal move. And so it's really neat that white played this ko in the corner and plays it only after black has spent one move there. So if black does eventually kill this white group on the lower side, this extra move is going to be wasted because white was dead anyway. So that's the idea here. White's building up the attack in the upper right and doesn't care anymore about what happens to the lower side. It's not important anymore for the time being. So black does not have eyes. Black does not have eyes in the corner. Now I think that if I were playing as black, I would start trying to escape in earnest out into the center.
I mean, how many? I'm trying. One, two, three, 4 tanukis. Am I counting those right?
About
No,
three
5,
tanukis.
3 tanukis, and now black should make
the exchange on the right side. It's
right.
these 3 moves basically.
Okay.
This stuff here was an exchange. It was 2 moves each.
Man, talk about playing with fire.
Yeah, so I would be thinking maybe like I would be thinking of moves like this, or I would be thinking of moves like this to escape out into the center.
All right.
These would be all very natural, normal moves.
Right. I was thinking like M13, yeah, M13, something fast, right?
Yeah. People would not. People don't worry about you if you play a move like this. They think you're acting normal. But yeah, AlphaGo and Beech here. So this is where it gets really crazy. I did a research of this move, and I can see how it sort of works. It's in the game variation. You will see how it is sort of working. And I won't go into all the variations that I tried to figure out. It's just crazy. So here black is actually attacking white, but not really accomplishing very much in the corner. This little move here, it's sort of funny, but it does have a potential connection to the left or the right. So that move is connected up. That stone is connected up to one side or the other. It means that black has no eyes at all in the corner. No eyes. Black's idea is to put pressure on this white group. Black's actually trying to attack the white group, and it's kind of a suicide mission.
Wait. I'm confused. Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out which group.
This white group. It's because in the process of killing black, just to keep it very simple, if black plays something around here or something like this, white has to continue the attack with this move. It means that this white group, it only has one eye on the right here. And if we get into a race to capture, a semi-like situation, the black group, this black group is going to have a lot of liberties. It has a lot of liberties on the outside there.
So the rule is,
so white has to keep away from a race to capture.
I mean, usually one eye beats no eye, but you're saying that more liberties might be.
Like I'm talking about a situation potentially where black gets the cut here, and the 3 stones here are somehow escaped.
I see.
And the one eye for no eye, and this move is yeah. Let's just use stones. So it looks like this when white starts filling liberties. The one eye to no eye rule, it applies to positions where you have a lot of inside liberties. And it turns out in this case, all the inside liberties between the black group and the white group here, they're all filled up.
Yep.
So one eye, it makes no difference at all. It's absolutely useless having one eye.
That's
unless you can make it an eye that makes it really difficult for your opponent to approach your stones. Sometimes that happens, but usually the eye makes no good, does no good. So the fact that white has a disadvantage there, an implied disadvantage in the race to capture, it means that white is going to have to be very serious about going after these black stones. Otherwise, at some point, white's going to be forced to connect here, which is a kind of a move that is not very valuable. White doesn't want to be playing a move here. It's a 0-point move. So that's what's happening with what black does. And the various reasons why it is working got really complicated. So I'll just follow it like a story and remember that that's what black is trying to do.
All right. I got it.
So for instance, it would be like if white did something like this,
Yeah,
that would be an opportunity for black to save the stones. I actually made a variation for you, and white has to connect at 9. And in this variation, black actually has room to squeeze out. And I made this variation. In this variation, white still only has 1 eye. And black is getting something towards the right side. And it's basically the fact that this black group in the upper left is so strong. It's acting like a solid wall. So white doesn't get any options to do something like a splitting attack, which you would usually be seeing here. Black's so strong in the surrounding positions that it's going to be relatively easy for black to escape with that one group. One group never dies is the proverb that people use. It's the same. It's because it's you can just focus on saving the one group, and it's relatively easy.
Yep, big dragon.
Okay, yeah. So white cuts. This actually captures the 4 black stones.
Yeah.
And white plays here. So this is actually a point where white had a choice. And white could have played the peaceful way, which is just capturing the 4 stones.
Sure.
Like, instead of playing here, just playing here. And maybe this was better. It's a very subtle difference. Black is probably going to play this exchange. And there's this neat move which comes up in the game also. Usually this would just lose the stone. But for instance, if white takes from this side, then black can capture the whole corner. And in this variation, I'll actually show you in this variation, there's a forcing move here, which is threatening to capture the whole corner. And it's also threatening a ko here. So that's what black's going to make use of this forcing move at 10 when black plays at 4. So there's a direct connection to black
nice.
10 and the move at 4. Okay, so in the game, white played here. And this is heating the situation up. It's trying to make a more effective attack on black. Let's just go back to that variation. So white's going to play here, but black extends here anyway. And if white plays here, we're going to have the same issue with that forcing move. So black will play here. And it's a double threat. So that's the idea with black 4. It's an amazing move there, where black plays this move. White's probably, the verdict is white has to pull back here, and that takes away some territory from white in the corner. So that's what black was accomplishing there, taking away the whole corner territory. And then black's going to escape towards the center. This is a relatively calm fight, where white is still putting pressure on black on the upper side. White kept the territory on the right. Eventually, white's going to save that group on the lower side. And after that, we're going to see something happen in the lower left corner. So this is an even fight. It looks good to me. I think Kata was saying that white's winning by half a point or something like that. No one knows. I wouldn't be able to finish it, but that's the idea. It's probably really close, but and a difficult decision. White's playing here. Obviously, it's going to put a lot more pressure on the black group. But black's really happy to play this Atari and get something extra in that part of the board. So it's actually going to put more pressure on this white group too. It's not as important as the black group, but eventually that's going to be a problem for white. So we get this same sequence where black is making use of the forcing move at Q19, and white has to give away the corner territory. So that was neat. And black connects here. You can see white's still heating it up with this move. And black cuts here. So I understand this move. And the idea is that usually you would expect white to connect on the right.
Yeah.
And black is going to play this move. And it makes a difference when white tries to kill the black group in the upper right. Because white 5 there was necessary to prevent black from playing an Atari here. So white had to play 5. But there's still a problem there, because black can play here and cut. And this is just a collapse for white. For instance, if
Aye,
white
aye,
takes
aye.
the one stone, it's Atari already. What else can white try to do? White plays here. Black can just take this, and it's
Wow,
going to be
wow, wow,
Atari.
wow.
Yeah, so it's just falling apart. White's in shortage of liberties. Dumb is murder.
That's
So that's what the
beautiful.
cut is doing. That's what
That's
the cut is doing here.
wow.
That said, there's no problem with white playing this way. And then, for instance, white could back off a little bit and, for instance, play here. And this would be perfectly okay. White's going to start moving out with this group on the lower side, build in center, and white does have a cut here to look forward to at some point. This would be okay for white. Maybe this was better than the game. So I understand that if white plays here, white loses the option to cut black and kill that black group there, as I was showing you.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of understand this move, because this is actually threatening to kill the black group. So let's look at that. If black plays away, it's the same sequence, only this time black can't do anything towards the left, right? So black's going to cut here, and this is actually a dead shape. And I continued it because it's sort of interesting, but white has this ladder on both sides. So yeah, that's not working for black.
No,
so that's
sure
the threat there. So it's not working for black. So that was the threat with this move. White is threatening to kill the black group, but I still don't like it. Like I still like this variation, and white just doesn't have to persist in trying to kill the black group. It's not working, so white can continue the fight in the center. This would be okay for white. And this loses so much territory, I find it hard to accept this move. It's something like 10 points that black got there for free. And now black's going to be able to, if white plays a move here, this time black has a complete connection here. So it's not like the previous diagram where I was talking about a potential cut at this point. It's a clean connection. So black's problems are finished now.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't like this. I can see how white was threatening to kill the black group. I sort of don't agree with it. But of course, it's AlphaGo. AlphaGo is as close to perfect as we had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so maybe there's something I'm missing.
Nah, nothing you're missing. Nothing you're missing.
So black gained some territory on the upper side, and in return, white is starting to get an attack on the lower side. This is another point where I can sort of, if you still remember, a long time ago, black played this weird move on the second line on the lower side.
I remember. I missed it when I was looking around the board for it. I couldn't find it.
Right. Well, when we come to this point of the game, this move looks like a good way to start making ice. So if black continues with a move here, it's pretty good ice shape. So that would be another reason why this move is working in this particular game. It's like you have to be psychic or something to be able to see this far in the future. And black just plays away. The lower left corner is really big. So yeah, this is the one variation where I wanted to do a bit of a deep dive here. Attaching here and doing the double hunting towards the corner is something you see a lot. And basically, in many cases, if black just plays straight down, sometimes that's not going to be good enough to have a comfortable living shape. So what black is doing is black is sort of hoping for a diagonal shape. It's a lot easier to divide your position into two eyes when your stones are connected diagonally. Like it's just so much better shape. So this would probably be working for black, with black playing moves like this next. So that's the idea here. When you're in trouble, when you're locally trying to make a life, quite often you find these diagonal moves that work. Obviously, when you play a diagonal, you have to worry about white playing some kind of an Atari. So if white plays an Atari from above, white still has that cut at D2, so it's not working. Black just captures the one stone. Or if white connects on this side, black can capture this stone to easily live there in the corner. So that's what black's goal, to make a living shape. So in the game, white cuts on this side. This is the one that white didn't cut on that side, sorry. It's AlphaGo. White plays away for a bit. Okay, so that's alive. So in the game, white's still playing away. If white cuts here, and takes the one stone. How is this going to work for black? Black is usually going to make use of this cut, and sometimes has to start with a Sargari in the corner, extending down in the corner. And so here. And this is basically if white plays to the right. If white plays to the right, yes. Having trouble getting to the right variation there. Black can pull back here. That's what black 6 was doing. It was establishing this forcing move, and black is alive. So, or if white plays on this side. Now, there's an issue that white's corner group is not alive yet. So it works something like this, where black is going to get the lower side on a fairly large scale. And white will be able to capture black stones on the left there, but white has to be careful about moves like this that are going to continue to be a problem for white. If white connects, you can see black's going to win this one. So stuff like this is going to be a problem for white. So that's black's idea. There's basically, when black plays the double hane and white takes with 1 and 3, it's usually a combination of black 8 with the cut here, or a potential life on the side. So you have to work out the details, which will be different depending on the board position there. But that's the general idea for black when black plays the double hane. So that's actually something that's going to be pretty useful in actual games. The idea of playing a double hane and knowing that you're going to sacrifice that stone at the 2-2 point. So yeah, the players are playing elsewhere for a bit. There is this black group on the lower side that's not completely alive. So white's attacking that first, but the attack did not succeed very well. So black now has an eye on the lower side and has to build one more eye. And the problem was that this white group was not completely secure either, this white group here. And so white's reinforcing that group during the attack. So white has to sort of double task here with the white group being weak also. And finally, black has room to make a second eye. White did get some extra territory on the lower side, and also there's the fact that if white at some point plays here, that's going to be an attack against black's group on the left. So if black answers on this side, that's a dead group there.
Right.
So there is that extra potential that white gets. Just a little extra territory. And white did build a position in the center. The game is still, obviously, still really close. So this is a final position, which is not going to happen here in games, but it's going to be really neat. So black plays here. Strangely, this is a good move. It's actually establishing a kind of a looking to connect up to the center. So that's what this move is doing. And white obviously plays here. Black cuts first. So if white plays something from the center, black is going to use this Tesuji anyway. So this is the Tesuji threatening, making use of this stone here and threatening white. So if white plays here, at the very, this is the better variation. So black's going to be able to live in the corner in this case, like this. So that's idea number 1. Or if white plays on this side, black still gets to force here, and will be able to live in the corner. So black wedging at 2 is going to allow black to live there. So white cuts, and now black gets to push through here, and push through here, and white doesn't have time to capture the 3 black stones in the corner. So white plays here, black plays here. And that was AlphaGo makes it look so easy, but that was
I was just going to comment on that the last couple of sequences you played where black just sort of invented eyes out of almost nothing. It's just amazing. Right. I mean, that black group, I thought that black group in the center bottom, having been left so long, I was trying to work out while you were talking where it was going to get the eyes. Same thing on the left.
You wouldn't believe how deep a calculation and going into variations it took to understand what was going on.
Oh yeah. Oh, I believe it. I believe it.
It was very challenging. AlphaGo is always very challenging. Yeah. And I spared you most of the variations, by the way. You might think I was getting complicated. But
no. Keeping it simple. Keeping it simple. That's your mantra today.
Okay. So here, white still has a bit of an issue in the center of the board because this white group, that's what white's doing with this stone here. There's a slight issue with this white group on the upper side when black plays moves like this. And usually it would be really painful unless you can capture here, right? And so there's this move forcing sometimes. And so if you look at it locally, there are some cases where white's not going to have two eyes there. This would be an example of white's losing two eyes. So that's what white was doing with this move that is securing the connections to the center. So it was just really difficult for white to find a good move towards the left side. White sort of wants to find good moves surrounding territory in this area, but the problem in the center is sort of interfering with that, and the fact that, for instance, there's also this move, which is also a problem. If white plays on the outside, and this cuts off the whole group on the lower right. So white's going to play pushing through here. Black has these forcing moves, which can sometimes sort of connect up to a move like this, and so something like this. So there are some potential problems there for white with that group on the upper side not being 100%. I'm making this point because I sort of resist white playing here. It seems to be a slow move, but there are some reasons for white to be playing that. So black plays here. You can see black is still aiming at this point here. So for instance, if white plays here, which is a big move, black can play here and connect here. That's threatening the cut here. And again, you see with black 8, that whole white group is not secure. It would not, white has some stuff in the center with moves like this and stuff. So it's not as if it's going to die outright. But basically, white's going to be pushed around a bit, lose some points on the upper side, and eventually this move at 1 here, it's not going to be functioning as efficiently as you might hope, because black's going to squeeze in there a little bit. And so white adds a stone. That's actually a pretty big move in itself. And it's a really close endgame. There's still some excitement for you, by the way.
Oh, good. I was worried about that.
Yeah, it's not going to be a boring endgame because black ignores this move. This is a forcing move that white played here.
Yeah,
it's a forcing move. Black ignores it.
Maybe
white starts the ko, right?
Okay.
So now I do have a question of what if white had started playing the ko? White just doesn't seem to have enough ko threats. One point is that winning this ko is going to settle black's group on the lower side. So white doesn't have any. So for instance, ko threats like this one, they're not valid anymore, right? Black's so solid all over the place. It's just where white's ko threats. White maybe has one here, which would threaten to kill that black group on the upper side. But black has ko threats. Black has ko threats like this one, threatening to cut white off on the lower side. Black has some ko threats. So black has an advantage in this ko. And white in the game just connected here. Black connects. You might expect white to take the ko, right?
I might.
You might, yeah. It's dangerous. Black's going to push through here. And stuff like this might happen, which would be bad.
Oh, dear.
That would be bad. White doesn't have any eyes.
No, no.
So white ends up backing off. So this secures the connection there in the center.
Right.
And black finishes the ko. And it's a half-point difference. White did manage to take away the extra eye here. So that's why black was answering that white move. So that's why black had to actually black played it first, but this exchange here, it shows that black has to keep his two eyes. And so that did change the status here where white has the potential to capture that one stone. So white's getting something back there. And that was all these moves where white was taking away black's eye space. And yeah, you're going to see something happen on the left side here. This is a pretty big move that if black had played first, black could have peeped here. Black could have peeped here and played this forcing sequence. Or black could have played the Hanesugi immediately. But basically, there's a kind of a forced sequence implied there, which was not big enough before this move. But yeah, perfect timing for white to play it. But black's going to do something on that side anyway. So this is a fairly straightforward endgame up to this point. It was really close and hard to calculate, actually. So yeah, but it is a half-point difference. And the left side, surprisingly, there's going to be a stone that white has to put in, something that would be really easy to forget.
I thought it was something around. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like this. Locally, that shape, it's actually sort of similar to what you were saying about that fight on the right side.
Yeah.
Where an eye is better than no eye. In this case, it's a big eye. So although all of the inside dame's liberties are filled, it's not so the rule about having an eye against no eye, it doesn't apply in this case either. But the fact that white has this big eye that is 4 stone shape, it means that it has 5 moves. So since black has a stone in it already, white still has 4 moves left. It looks like there's only 3 points open here. Only these 3 points, but actually it's going to take black 4 moves to fill them. So for instance, if black plays here and here, white extends once. So that's an extra move there. It takes black 4 moves to fill all the moves. So yeah. So black's a couple of moves behind in the race to capture here. And so that's okay. So even if black at some point fills this liberty, white can still leave it. White can still leave it. And if black starts filling liberties, it looks like there's 2 liberties each, but white actually has 3. So that's the point here. So white wins the race to capture. So that's something about the 4 stone shape there, which is important. But there's the fact that when black plays this, the white group on this side is not strong enough. It doesn't have any extra eyes.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so eventually white's going to have to put a stone in there. So just to finish the game, I think this is about where the record ends, but I finished it actually. Black's going to win that ko. And so white's going to end up putting a stone in there. So that's how I finished the game. There's still some, if you want to use a program or something to calculate it, you would have to fill all these. It would be a good idea to fill all the dame points just to make sure you have all the necessary moves put in there. And using Japanese style rules, it's a half-point win for black. And of course, the Chinese rules, which are similar to the rules that AlphaGo uses, give black a 3/4 of a point. It's 3/4 of a stone, which is, that sort of translates to 1.5 points. It's just a difference in the rules that makes that difference.
Right.
Like a half-point win can change to a 1.5 point win for black, but it doesn't change to a half-point win for white. It doesn't work in the other direction. And so since it doesn't change the win-loss result, it's not an issue.
An amazing, as usual, commentary and analysis of just a fabulous game. And the whole thing, and I was watching the chat, the whole thing on sacrificing is so instructive, Michael. I really appreciate the conversation. I mean, I know going into the whole variations of the Josekis, but just in terms of macro issues on sacrificing, that really, I think, is important, especially for amateurs, to be constantly, we do tend to be attached to our stones because we played them,
It's human. Yeah, I think it's true of pros to an extent. And I think the fact that we've started researching with computers, AIs, the AIs are freer with sacrificing stones. Like sometimes I will ask a question, I want to find the best local move. The biggest problem is that the AI just plays away because it deals with whole board situations. just
Right.
plays away. It takes a long time to get into us. I can try to manufacture a situation where that area is the most important part of the board. I have to do a lot of work to manage to it changes the whole board position anyway. So it's really difficult to get the local answer from an AI because they're so free with sacrificing stones. And that's something that I think professionals, human players, have learned a lot from the AIs, is this attitude of being able to sacrifice stones even more than professionals did before, because it's something that professionals were good at.
Sure.
We're good at sacrificing
Yeah.
stones. It's something we like to do.
Right.
But I think that sort of leveled up when we started using AIs.
The other thing I'm just noticing in this game, because it does happen a number of times, is this idea of, which area is mine or the status of this group. I mean, you never,
It's so
you know,
fluid.
so fluid. I mean, you
Mhm.
really just couldn't get attached to any ideas about any of these groups. That wall, that black wall on the upper side there, that was just left until,
Mhm.
I think for my taste, a little bit beyond the last minute.
Right.
Same
Yes.
same thing.
Beyond the last minute. Definitely. Well, especially in classical games or games before computers. Excuse me. um, People tended to be a bit more attached to their areas and groups,
We need to
and it
get
was
you some
less
tea there.
fluid. Yeah, yeah. I ran out of tea.
Oh no.
um,
The tea to
but yeah,
sujet.
I think in modern games we're seeing being human players also being a lot more fluid how they do that. And AlphaGo, it was one of the eye openers of AlphaGo's games and the following programs. But the good thing about the following programs like Karago or Lila, that we have an interface that allows us to interact with them
Hmm.
and ask questions in a way by posing diagrams and stuff like that.
Right. Very, very exciting stuff. All right. Well, that was so, folks. That was a simple variation for you. So I hope everybody was taking notes and got it. So appreciate everybody watching. Hope it was entertaining and enlightening. And go forth and lose lots of games. And that's the best. That's the best way to learn. Michael, wonderful as always. Folks, we'll have more coming up. We've just got 3 more of these games, but Michael and I were talking um, before the stream. I think perhaps next we're talking about doing, we haven't done a classical game for a while, right? What do you think?
There's a lot of great classical games from hundreds of years ago. There's a lot of great games in the 20th century, actually.
Hmm.
In the period where they were transferring from no komi to komi, all sorts of things were happening. So that's also kind of a great era to look at.
Excellent.
There's plenty of great games out there. Sure, good
Yeah,
idea.
I'd love somebody was saying during the stream about how, AlphaGo it's beautiful to watch. As you were saying, Michael, the
Mhm.
play is so perfect, and we appreciate you doing all the work to explain it to us. But it is it is nice when you see human beings playing and being human and
Mm.
making mistakes.
Yeah, sometimes they make mistakes. Yeah,
which is kind
yeah,
of which is kind of it's not, I mean, it's not nice that they make mistakes, but it's human, I guess, is what I'm
yeah.
trying to
And you
say.
sometimes you can imagine some emotions in action, stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's a lot more stuff happening there.
Blood and guts. We like blood and
Yeah.
guts. All right. Thank you, as always, Michael. A big, big thank you to Eva-Dee, who did all of our engineering and making sure that everything was going. I see Stephen was able to drop in for a few minutes as well. So greetings to Stephen as well. And just a reminder to folks, be sure, if you're not already, to sign up on Michael. He's got his own channel. He's got lots of fabulous content. So if this wasn't enough, Michael, and it never is, go to his channel and check it out. He's got problems and game commentaries and just all kinds of wonderful stuff.
Thank
He's
you,
been
Chris.
putting his time to good use here for all of us. So thank you for doing that, Michael. I am very pleased that you have gotten your first shot. I look forward to getting your second shot probably by the next time we talk to you. But in any
Mhm.
case, thanks to everybody. Thank you. And we will see you all next time. Take care, everybody.